Welcome. What you are about to watch is not science fiction, and it is not folklore. It is a serious investigation into one of history's most compelling unresolved questions: the mystery of the Denisovans, the ghost humans who interbred with us and left no fossils. Across the world, in universities, research institutes, and field excavations, serious scholars are wrestling with evidence that does not fit the accepted story. Evidence that has been documented, measured, and peer-reviewed, and that still has no satisfying conventional explanation. We are going to look at that evidence carefully, without prejudice in either direction, not dismissing what is extraordinary, but not accepting it without scrutiny either. The truth, as always, is in the details. In 2008, archaeologists in a Siberian cave sifted a fragment of finger bone from the sediment. A scrap of hominin remains so small it fit between two fingers. 2 years later, a genome sequencing team at the Max Planck Institute extracted DNA from that fragment and discovered something that rewrote the human family tree. They had found an entirely unknown species of ancient human, one that no fossil record had ever suggested existed. The Denisovans, named for the cave in the Altai Mountains where the bone was found, had shared the planet with both Neanderthals and modern Homo sapiens. They had interbred with our ancestors. Their DNA survives today in living humans across Asia and the Pacific, where Melanesian and Aboriginal Australian populations carry up to 6% Denisovan ancestry. Tibetans inherited from them a gene that enables survival at extreme altitude, a biological adaptation that sustains millions of people alive today. And yet we have almost no idea what they looked like. The entire Denisovan fossil record from Siberia consists of a finger bone, 2 molars, and 1 additional bone fragment. A jawbone found in Tibet added 1 more specimen. We know their genome better than almost any extinct hominin, and we cannot draw their face. How can a species that interbred with us across a continent leave almost nothing behind? This is where our investigation begins. Stay with us, because the further we go into the evidence, the more extraordinary it becomes. The story you think you know is only the surface. Beneath it lies something far more remarkable. Let us begin. Before we examine the specific evidence, we need to step back and understand the context. This case does not exist in isolation. It sits within the global puzzle of unexplained ancient construction, and to properly evaluate what we are looking at, we need to understand the broader picture that surrounds it. Catastrophism, the idea that Earth's geological and cultural history has been shaped by sudden, violent events rather than gradual processes, was once the dominant paradigm in science. It was then largely displaced by uniformitarianism, the principle, championed by Charles Lyell in the 19th century, that the present is the key to the past, and that change occurs slowly and continuously. The pendulum has since swung back. Modern geology and astronomy have confirmed that catastrophic events, asteroid impacts, supervolcanic eruptions, rapid climate shifts, have profoundly shaped Earth's surface and life upon it. The Chicxulub impact that ended the Cretaceous is the most famous example, but it is not alone. The Younger Dryas cooling event 12,000 years ago caused radical shifts in human habitat within decades, not millennia. The Bronze Age collapse 3,000 years ago ended multiple interconnected civilizations in a generation. These events matter for archaeology because they reset the evidence. A major catastrophe does not merely destroy a civilization, it destroys the record of that civilization. Survivors carry only what they can remember, and memory degrades with each generation. After a few centuries, the grandchildren of survivors have myths where their grandparents had engineering manuals. What archaeologists find when they excavate ancient sites is not the full picture. It is the fragment that survived the last catastrophe. The full picture may be forever gone, preserved only in the ambiguous traces that puzzle researchers to this day. This context matters because it tells us something important. What we are about to investigate is not an isolated curiosity. It is part of a pattern that researchers in multiple fields have been independently documenting for decades. And patterns in science demand explanation. With that foundation in place, let us now turn to the specific case at hand. Now we reach the heart of the matter, the core evidence surrounding the Denisovans, the ghost humans who interbred with us and left no fossils, is more extensive, more verified, and more troubling for conventional explanations than most people realize. Let us walk through it systematically, fact by fact, and allow the evidence to speak for itself. We are not going to speculate here. Every point that follows is documented in peer-reviewed publications, official archaeological records, or government archives that are publicly accessible. The question is not whether these facts are real. The question is what they mean. Consider this first extraordinary detail. Denisova cave in the Altai Mountains of Siberia has yielded the entire Denisovan fossil record from that region. A finger bone fragment known as Denisova 3, recovered in 2008, plus 2 molar teeth and a second finger bone fragment. From this minimal material, Svante Pääbo's team at the Max Planck Institute for Evolutionary Anthropology sequenced a complete genome in 2010, revealing a previously unknown hominin species distinct from both Neanderthals and modern Homo sapiens. This single data point, if taken in isolation, might be set aside. Anomalies happen, instruments malfunction, researchers make mistakes. But as we continue, you will see that this is not an isolated anomaly. It is part of a consistent and documented pattern. But that is only the beginning. Researchers also discovered, in 2019, the Zaya mandible, a jawbone recovered from Baishia Karst cave on the Tibetan plateau, was confirmed as Denisovan through ancient protein analysis, making it the first identified Denisovan fossil outside Siberia. It was dated to at least 160,000 years ago. Its location at 280 meters elevation in Tibet demonstrates the Denisovans occupied extreme high-altitude environments tens of thousands of years before modern humans arrived in the region. Now, a skeptic might propose an alternative explanation for this, and that is entirely reasonable. We should always test alternative explanations before accepting extraordinary ones. The problem is that the alternative explanations, when examined carefully, create more problems than they solve. The mystery deepens when we examine. Tibetan populations carry the EPAS1 gene variant that enables efficient oxygen use at high altitude, reducing the risk of altitude sickness and fatal polycythemia. This exact variant is found in the Denisovan genome, but not in lowland human populations. Its presence in modern Tibetans can only be explained by interbreeding with Denisovans, making it the clearest documented example of a beneficial gene inherited by modern humans from an archaic hominin species through interbreeding. This is where the conventional account begins to strain. Each individual fact might be dismissed or minimized in isolation. But the cumulative weight of the evidence is another matter entirely. Perhaps most remarkable of all, Melanesian and Aboriginal Australian populations carry 4 to 6% Denisovan DNA, the highest proportion of Denisovan ancestry found in any living human group. East Asian populations carry approximately 0.2%. The striking difference in Denisovan ancestry between Melanesia and mainland Asia suggests at least 2 separate interbreeding events between modern humans and Denisovans occurred at different times and in different geographic locations as humans migrated across Asia. Researchers who have examined this evidence have described it as genuinely difficult to explain within the accepted framework. These are not fringe commentators. They are credentialed academics publishing in mainstream journals, raising questions that the field has not yet satisfactorily answered. Then there is the matter of Denisovans made objects consistent with symbolic behavior. A chlorite pendant with a drilled hole, consistent with use as personal ornament, was found in Denisova cave. The presence of jewelry-making behavior in Denisovans parallels similar findings for Neanderthals and suggests both archaic hominin groups possessed the cognitive capacity for symbolic expression and personal adornment well before the arrival of modern humans at their sites. What language, if any, they used remains entirely unknown. What makes this particularly significant is its independence from the previous points. This is not a case of one theory requiring another. These are separate lines of evidence converging on the same uncomfortable conclusion. Adding to the enigma is this finding. Genome analysis established that Denisovans are more closely related to Neanderthals than to modern humans, with the two archaic lineages diverging from each other approximately 400,000 years ago. A 2018 study published in Nature described a first-generation hybrid individual found in Denisova cave, nicknamed Deni, whose mother was a Neanderthal and whose father was a Denisovan. The discovery of a direct hybrid individual confirmed that interbreeding between the two archaic species was not merely possible, but actually occurred. Taken together, these facts form a pattern that cannot be explained by coincidence, misidentification, or methodological errors. Each piece of evidence has been examined by skeptics. Each has been subjected to alternative explanations, and in each case, the alternative explanation falls short of accounting for everything that has been documented. We are left with a body of evidence that demands explanation and an accepted narrative that does not provide one. This is where serious inquiry begins. Now that we have established the evidence, we need to examine the theories that researchers have proposed to explain the Denisovans, the ghost humans who interbred with us and left no fossils. This is where the debate becomes most intense, because the theories reflect not just different interpretations of the same evidence, but fundamentally different assumptions about what is possible and what the past looked like. Understanding these theories is not just an academic exercise. Each one has been championed by serious researchers with genuine credentials, and each one captures something that the others miss. The truth, if it is ever established, will likely draw on elements of several. The first major explanation, proposed by researchers, holds that the mainstream position, developed by Svante Pääbo and colleagues, is that Denisovans interbred with modern humans in multiple separate events as human populations migrated through Asia. The higher Denisovan ancestry in Melanesia compared to mainland Asia implies at least one interbreeding event in Southeast Asia or near the Wallace Line. The main unresolved question is the precise geographic range of Denisovan populations and whether distinct regional groups interbred separately with different migrating modern human populations. This interpretation has significant academic support and is backed by substantial evidence. But it is not without problems. Critics point out that it requires assumptions that go beyond what the evidence strictly supports, and that key predictions of this theory have not been confirmed by subsequent research. It remains contested, and the contest is productive. A rival school of thought argues that the geographic distribution of Denisovans was vast, from the Siberian Altai through the Tibetan Plateau to Southeast Asia, and possibly as far as Papua New Guinea, for hundreds of thousands of years before they're extinct. This range, inferred entirely from the genetic data of their descendants, makes them potentially one of the most widespread hominin species. The main objection is that the actual fossil record needed to confirm this range remains extraordinarily sparse. This theory is controversial, and deliberately so. Its proponents argue that the evidence demands an explanation outside the conventional framework. Critics counter that extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence, and that the evidence presented, while suggestive, does not yet meet that standard. The debate continues in peer-reviewed literature. Perhaps the most unconventional theory suggests that a separate and later interbreeding event in island Southeast Asia produced the elevated Denisovan ancestry observed specifically in Melanesian, Aboriginal Australian, and Philippine Negrito populations. Distinct from an earlier interbreeding event shared more broadly across East Asia, a 2021 study identified evidence for two distinct waves of Denisovan introgression into modern human populations. The main objection is that the source population of this second event has not been identified in the fossil or archaeological record. What is striking about this debate is not merely that experts disagree. That is normal and healthy in science. What is striking is the quality of the disagreement. Serious researchers, working from the same body of evidence, reaching genuinely different conclusions. That level of fundamental disagreement, when it persists over decades, is a signal that something important has not yet been understood. The question is not which of these theories is right. The question is whether any of them is right, or whether the truth is something that none of the current frameworks has yet been able to capture. The case surrounding the Denisovans, the ghost humans who interbred with us and left no fossils, does not rest on speculation alone. What distinguishes this investigation from pure mythology is the existence of documented, physical, verifiable evidence, material that has been examined by credentialed researchers and whose authenticity is not seriously disputed. What is disputed is its interpretation. Let us review the most significant documented evidence as objectively as possible. We are not going to cherry-pick the data that supports a preferred conclusion. We are going to lay out what exists and let you draw your own assessment. Physical evidence supporting this account includes genome analysis of the Denisova three-finger bone produced a complete high-coverage genome confirming a distinct hominin lineage. Denisovans share a common ancestor with Neanderthals that diverged from the modern human lineage approximately 600,000 years ago, with the Denisovan Neanderthal split occurring around 400,000 years ago. The genome also showed clear signatures of interbreeding with modern humans, establishing gene flow as a confirmed historical event rather than a hypothesis. This evidence has been subjected to independent verification. Skeptics have examined it. Alternative explanations have been proposed and tested. The data remains. The question of what it means remains open. Investigators have documented the EPAS1 gene in modern Tibetan populations provides the most compelling evidence of Denisovan inheritance. The specific haplotype associated with altitude adaptation is found only in the Denisovan genome and in Tibetan individuals, not in any lowland human population. The probability of this shared variant arising independently is negligible. This documented functional inheritance, a gene that improves survival, confirms Denisovan interbreeding with the ancestors of Tibetans as a historical fact. This evidence has been subjected to independent verification. Skeptics have examined it. Alternative explanations have been proposed and tested. The data remains. The question of what it means remains open. On-site analysis revealed ancient protein analysis of the Zaya mandible, conducted when no recoverable DNA survived, confirmed Denisovan identity through comparison of collagen protein sequences with those from the Denisova cave specimens. A 2021 study then recovered sedimentary Denisovan DNA from Basia karst cave samples, extending the Tibetan site's Denisovan occupation to at least 100,000 and possibly 60,000 years ago. Sedimentary ancient DNA is now enabling identification of Denisovan presence at sites where bone fossils have not been found. This evidence has been subjected to independent verification. Skeptics have examined it. Alternative explanations have been proposed and tested. The data remains. The question of what it means remains open. Each individual piece of evidence might, in principle, be explained away. A single anomalous artifact might be misidentified. A single anomalous date might reflect contamination. A single anomalous eyewitness account might reflect misperception. The question is whether all of the evidence can be explained away, and whether the explanations required are more or less plausible than the evidence itself. When multiple independent lines of inquiry converge on the same conclusion, that convergence is the most powerful signal in empirical science. And that is exactly what we are seeing here. We have examined the history, the evidence, and the theories surrounding the Denisovans, the ghost humans who interbred with us and left no fossils. Now we need to ask the question that is sometimes overlooked in discussions of ancient mysteries. Why does this matter? What does it mean for us today? It would be easy to file this away as an interesting historical curiosity, a puzzle from a distant past with no bearing on our present lives. That would be a fundamental mistake. The questions raised by this case touch on issues that are directly relevant to who we are, where we came from, and what the human story actually looks like before the period covered by conventional history. Svante Pääbo received the Nobel Prize in Physiology or Medicine in 2022 for his discoveries concerning the genomes of extinct hominins, with the Denisovan discovery cited as one of the defining achievements. The Zaya mandible remains the only physically identified Denisovan fossil outside Siberia. A 2019 study attempted to reconstruct Denisovan facial anatomy from epigenetic data, producing a tentative image, but physical remains to confirm it do not yet exist. What drove the Denisovans to extinction is unknown. Whether they survive in any undiscovered isolated population remains an open question that no one seriously entertains, but their genetic legacy continues in hundreds of millions of living humans across Asia and the Pacific today. Furthermore, the tools available to investigate these questions are advancing rapidly. Satellite imaging, ground-penetrating radar, ancient DNA analysis, isotopic tracing, and deep-sea sonar are all providing capabilities that previous generations of researchers could only dream of. Cases that were genuinely unresolvable 10 years ago are now open to new analysis, and the findings, consistently, are expanding rather than contracting the mystery. The investigation continues. New discoveries are being made. New analyses are being published. New voices are entering the conversation from disciplines that were not previously part of the discussion. The answers, when they come, and they will come, will not merely solve a historical puzzle. They will force a fundamental revision of assumptions that underpin our entire understanding of human history and human potential. We have now walked through the complete case of the Denisovans, the ghost humans who interbred with us and left no fossils from the historical record. Through the physical evidence, across the competing theories, and into the modern significance of what remains unresolved. What the story of Denisovans ultimately reveals is not just a historical puzzle. It is a mirror. It reflects our assumptions back at us, our assumptions about what ancient people were capable of, about how knowledge is gained and lost across the centuries, and about the relationship between what we know and what we merely think we know. The evidence presented in this documentary is real. The questions it raises are genuine. The debate among researchers is ongoing, and that is healthy. Science is not a set of conclusions. It is a process. And the process requires that we remain open to evidence that challenges what we thought we knew, however uncomfortable that challenge might be. If you came to this documentary as a skeptic, we hope the evidence gave you something to think about. If you came as a true believer, we hope the critical examination gave you a more nuanced picture. The truth, as always, lies in the evidence, not in what we want to be true. Thank you for watching. If this investigation sparked your curiosity, please subscribe to the channel. We publish new documentaries every week, covering the full range of historical mysteries that the mainstream has not yet adequately explained. Leave a comment below telling us which case you want us to investigate next. The conversation continues. The investigation never ends.